Welcome to another episode of Doing It Cheap. Hey folks, in this episode I'm going to tell you why I decided not to buy the Harbor Freight Trencher Backhoe tow behind deal. I really needed a backhoe or trencher to dig up some tree stumps and dig some footers to pour concrete and all that. And I was really looking at this little thing that Harbor Freight makes. But it's real lightweight, and I've owned heavy equipment almost all my life, and I was really apprehensive about buying it. I looked at all the reviews. I got on YouTube to see what people said about it. A shout out to a feller named Gone Red Car or something like that. Gone Red Car 1. Anyway, if you look up Harbor Freight trenchers, you'll see all the improvements he did to his. And I just got to scratching my head. I mean, the man replaced the engine on it. He replaced the pump on it. He beefed up the floor on it. He didn't have to, but he did all kinds of improvements to it. And did a fantastic job. Don't want to take a thing in the world away from the man. Did a beautiful job. I mean, he does extremely nice work. But I got studying and I said, my God, that's running up a bunch of money. So I tried to say, well, what is the advantage to owning that little cheap Harbor Freight trencher? And the only advantage I could see is that you don't have to have a big truck to move it. You don't have to have a separate trailer. You know, he talked about towing it from here and there and everywhere, you know, to do work for friends and stuff like that. So I can see how that would come in handy. My personal use is just for my farm. I'm not in the business of doing work for other people. So that wasn't a big plus for me. It might be for you. You know, you might have a whole bunch of different properties that you want to tow this little thing around to plant shrubs, whatever. But when I read about people bending the booms and bending the cylinders and ripping the buckets in half, and I mean, they even sell a replacement bucket. They're so cheap. But after reading all the reviews, I was a little apprehensive. But I was still looking at it because I've owned junk all my life. All my life, just old wore out crap. And, you know, at my age, I was thinking maybe I'd like to have something nice. And then I go to look at it again at Harbor Freight, and the price went up again. So now instead of that little thing being $21.99 plus tax plus shipping, and then it jumped up to $25.99 plus tax plus shipping. And of course they took away the 20% off. Now then it's listed at $27.99 plus tax plus shipping. Well, for me here in Tennessee, the sales tax be almost $300. So that would put it right at $3,100. And then I got the freight, which would be about $100. So it's $3,200 for me to invest in this little thing. And I love Craigslist. I get on Craigslist all the time. So we're going to cut from this scene here to out at my farm and let you see what I bought instead. I paid $1,800 for it. I paid a feller, he said he'd go get it and bring it to me for $250. I gave him a $50 tip because I figured everybody else is wanting $500 to $1,000 to go do the same job. And this guy, he's in the trucking business, and he says, I'll do it for $2.50. Well, I felt like he underbid himself, so I gave him an extra $50. You know, I like doing it cheap. I want to treat people right. And the old boy that drove it off the trailer, I give him $5. I said, here, that's for having balls enough to drive that thing off that trailer. So anyway, I've got 305. So I've got $2,105 tied up in this, and it's going to need a little work, a little maintenance here and there, and rebuild a few cylinders where there's a leak, you know. But any old equipment's going to leak, and I ain't scared. I've owned that kind of stuff all my life. But like I said, this is why I decided not to buy the Harbor Freight little trencher, because I got on Craigslist and you can find a full-size backhoes for $3,500 to $4,000. And I'm just saying, why would I want to invest $3,200 in a toy versus maybe $4,000 in an industrial machine that when I get tired of it, I can sell it for what I gave for it, because the stuff only gets so cheap. You know, the worst plumb wore out backhoe out there is worth $3,000. I don't care how rough it is. If it'll work, you get $3,000 for it. So that's my thoughts. I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but I hope you like what I show you. Well, I decided that, by golly, this right here would be what I buy. I bought this for $1,800, and I paid the guy $300 to go get it for me. It is a Case Davis. The guy said it's a 70 plus 4, that it weighs 11,500 pounds. All I know is it's a big son of a bitch. And you had to trench a ditch to bury a water line or electric line. I got 2 extra tires and wheels with it and some other goodies. It uses a 3-cylinder little Ford diesel engine. It has a D130, I think it's what it is, or SD130 backhoe on it. I'm out here digging up a stump right now. Just wanted to show it to you. It doesn't have outriggers. What it has is it's got a dozer blade on it. You know, like when you want to backfill your ditch. Well, it's got a dozer blade on there instead of outriggers, and that's just fine. But just look at how much more substantial this thing is than that Harbor Freight thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, for what it's made for, Harbor Freight thing's fine, I reckon. But I'm a little too rough on equipment to be worrying about if my bucket's going to rip in half. As you can see, I've been doing some digging. I mean, I just unloaded it off the trailer, drove it over here, and just started digging with it. You know, trying to identify the little odds and ends wrong with it, because anytime you got used equipment, you got stuff you got to do to it. But I'm damn well pleased. Of course, it's in the 30s here today, and the old engine did have to have a shot of ether or starting fluid. Well, I ran out of memory. That's why we was cut off short a minute ago. And here we are. It's another day out here on the farm. And I want you to show you a good look at what I got here. It's a sure enough backhoe. It's got a 4-way dozer blade, and the chain digs a trench. And this is looks like it's a SD130 backhoe. This sucker's big. I mean, you know, lay my hand up here. It's made out of real steel. This ain't the old square tubing now. This sucker dig. I think it digs 8 feet deep. I'm not sure. I'll have to find out one of these days. But that right there, in my opinion, beats the living shit out of that little old thing Harbor Freight's selling. And folks, they're out there. Now, this thing is a backhoe attachment, you might say, because it's got pins down here, it's got pins up there, and this thing can just be disconnected from this unit and something else put in its place. But I shopped around, and dadgum backhoe attachments, the cheapest I could find was $2,500 used, and I bought this whole dadgum machine for $1,800. Cost me $300 to get it delivered. But let me tell you, this is a big piece of equipment. When a guy pulled up on his dadgum trailer out there at the road, I'm like, holy crap, because this thing was huge. You know, I was expecting a little old bitty toy, but hell no. Anyway, that's what I wanted to show you. That's why I chose not to buy the Harbor Freight backhoe. Or trencher. I just believe that you can go out there, you can find you a better deal on something, because by the time you spend, let's see, it used to be $21.99, then it's $25.99, now it's $2,799. And by the time we add Tennessee sales tax, I'm over $3,000, or I'm at $3,000. No, I'm over $3,000, almost $3,100. And then the freight for Harbor Freight to ship it to Nashville puts me around $3,200, $3,300 for their toy. And I want to tell you something, folks. You ain't gonna tear that bucket in half. I just heard so many horror stories about the ones people bought. And I say horror stories, I mean they just talk about things that break on them and have to be fixed, and anything mechanical can break and need fixing. But you know, I really think when I'm dealing with big old steel like this right here, it don't tend to break as easy as that other little stuff. And if it does, what am I out? Right now I'm probably $1,200, $1,300 to the good. And I've got to go in here and I'm going to repack some cylinders and clean out some valves and all that kind of stuff. Just shit that should have been done but nobody ever took care of it. But by God, let me show you what I've done with it. This is the only way to get in my backyard without driving in the front yard around the house. And this had a bunch of stumps back here. I dug that bad boy out. Well, yeah, I've done tore the living crap out of the yard, out of the field back here. But let me tell you, it popped them stumps out of the ground. Pardon my shaking. So now then once I get this cleaned up, I'll be able to drive around here and not have to go in my front yard. Anyhow, that's why I chose not to buy the Harbor Freight little trencher. Here in Tennessee, I have found backhoes, complete backhoes now, $3,000, $3,500. We're talking about running machines. And keep in mind, your Harbor Freight is not mobile. I mean, you can pull yourself around with a bucket, but you know, you can't just drive it somewhere. You got to tow it. So here's a self-contained unit. So, you know, I got to do it cheap, and that's just me. Well, it's a little cool here. It's January. Sorry I ain't been around much lately on my videos. Lord, I've been just wore plumb out. But we'll get some more coming, and I really appreciate you checking out this video, and I hope it makes a little sense to you. Well, folks, that was my little trencher, ditch witch style, backhoe. I hope you like what you saw. That's me. I like doing it cheap. So thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day and a better tomorrow. Bye.